The movie begins on an ordinary modern day with Gray Trace, an auto mechanic who likes to get things done with his hands. He spends most of his time repairing manual vintage cars, a hobby and a living, which seems too outdated for his time. Unlike him, his wife, Asha, is highly inclined toward technology. She works at Cobalt, specializing in robotic limbs for wounded soldiers, and even has an electronic car that drives independently. In fact, their entire house is installed with advanced AI technology called Kara, which does everything they command. It even buys their groceries for them. Gray shares that he will drop off the Firebird to the client tonight and will need her to come with him to drive him back since he doesn't understand her car. Asha hesitates but eventually agrees when he claims his client is a big shot. That night, he takes her to a beautiful hillside and down an underground entry on top of 2 large rocks. Inside, everything is masterfully sophisticated in design and artificial, where they meet a young tech entrepreneur, Aaron Keene. He appears weird but brilliant with social awkwardness, as he's occupied creating an indoor cloud. However, for Asha, she is starstruck to meet the creator of Vessel Computers, who is famous in the industry. But Gray probably doesn't even know him. Eventually, their conversation leads to Aaron, introducing them to his latest and biggest invention, the world's future, STEM. He gives them an exclusive sneak peek of his bug-like microchip with the full potential to do everything, simply describing it as a better brain. While the two are thrilled with the invention, Gray thinks differently and sees more unemployed people on the line. After an interesting night at Aaron's, the couple enjoys an intimate moment in the car, emphasizing one of its perks. However, it suddenly detours in a new crown, Gray's old neighborhood. The car malfunctions at high speed, sending them off in an accident at a squatter's area. Luckily, they survive with a few injuries, and mysterious men come to their immediate aid, acting to help them. Suddenly, they reveal their true intentions by separating the couple and targeting Asha. The masked man shoots her, and they leave Gray with a severed spine. Unfortunately, the night ends with Asha murdered and Gray paralyzed and widowed. After 3 months, Gray comes home a quadriplegic with a hole in his heart. Even though his mother helps him move forward in life, he just can't help but be depressed by the grief of losing Asha. Despite his struggles to cope, he still wants to find the men responsible, so he meets with Detective Cortez leading the investigation. Unfortunately, the drone surveillance footage fails to identify the criminals' faces, which complicates the case and greatly upsets Gray. As reality gets harder for him to accept, he decides on his fate and attempts to overdose. Fortunately, he's still alive, but for him, his life remains meaningless, being alone and disabled. Surprisingly, Aaron visits him to offer a once-in-a-lifetime chance for him to walk again using the STEM. However, Gray clarifies that he wants the exact opposite, to end it all. Aaron doesn't force him, but he somehow gets convinced by the mention of his wife, thinking Asha would definitely want him to walk again with the help of technology, since she works in that field. Immediately, they proceed with the operation in Iran's home to keep it a secret. The highly advanced biomechanical fusion surgery successfully implanted the STEM into his neck, enabling him to walk and use his arms. The miraculous intervention of technology aims to give him a normal life again, and everyone in the room is surprised at the speed of his recovery. In agreement with the surgery, the experiment will need to be confidential. Aaron clarifies that STEM doesn't make him a robot, but rather, it works in service of his brain. At home, Gray doesn't use his wheelchair anymore, and Kara informs him of the package Cortez delivered for him. He then reviews the case files and plays the surveillance footage on the screen. Suddenly, STEM speaks to him like a person, shocking him. He thinks he's gone insane, but it assures him that he's only diagnosed with mild PTSD and is not medically insane. He further converses with it and learns that it can only respond with permission and cannot read his mind. Given the permission to speak, it points out specific details displayed on the footage, hinting 2 clues to pin the criminals. One uses a gun implanted in his hand to shoot Asha, and the other has a military tattoo containing that person's personal information. STEM decodes the tattoo, and they have a breakthrough in the case, identifying Cirque and exposing his address. Gray calls Cortez, but STEM persuades him they need solid evidence to prove it since the tattoo wasn't clearly shown in the footage. The next day, Gray personally visits the address to confirm their speculation while avoiding the drone patrolling the area. When he gets inside Cirque's house, he inspects the table containing messages and finds a bar called Old Bonus in his old neighborhood, repeatedly being mentioned. However, he sees it as useless and roams around the place. Shortly after, Cirque returns and they get into a fight. Gray is overpowered and eventually permits STEM to take control. Instantly, he becomes superhuman, quickly turning the tables. He doesn't really want to kill Cirque, but Stem goes all out and murders him. Shocked by the crime scene, he struggles to comprehend what to do, but Stem helps him clean all his prints. A few days later, a medical examiner calls Cortez to report his findings on the autopsy of Cirque. He finds his body strange, full of computer implants, and discovers a functional gun implanted in his hand. Cortez then asks about the footprints they found on Cirque's porch, and the examiner says it's mostly engine grease. Meanwhile, Aaron reprimands Gray for using Stem to investigate where things could go wrong with the authorities, endangering the experiment. On the other hand, Cortez finds surveillance of Gray in the area of the crime at the exact date and time. Because of this, she suspects him despite his disability and visits his garage to investigate. Gray awkwardly defends himself, emphasizing he's unable to commit the crime. Still, Gray wants to continue his investigation, and Stem suggests he goes to Old Bonus. However, it warns him that Aaron can track him and will most likely attempt to shut his system down remotely. That night, Gray enters the bar in a wheelchair and takes a shot to perform his bold move to find the people involved in the murder of Asha. Without shame, he catches the attention of everyone with his announcement, calling anyone related to Cirque or the killing of his wife to come forward. Amidst the foolish laughter of everyone in the room, Tolan approaches him to make fun of him. But the mention of Cirque's death pisses him off, so he takes him to the comfort room to confront him. Gray insists that he killed him, but Tolan thinks he's making it up because it's physically impossible for him to do anything. Eventually, Tolan confesses to being involved, so Gray permits Stem to take over. Immediately, Gray overpowers everyone and electrocutes Tolan. This time, Gray tortures him to reveal the man behind Ash's death. Before he dies, he says they were a job ordered by Fisk, and Stem finds a metal device with cobalt embedded in it. Suddenly, Stem alerts him of Aaron's attempt to shut him down remotely, making him quadriplegic again. So, it urges him to find the apartment of Jamie, a computer hacker found on the darknet, to counter Aaron's code. Good thing she's only 10 minutes away from the bar. Gray comes out in a wheelchair, and the old man is shocked to find Tolan and his men dead. He then leaves his chair outside and runs to the apartment building. On his way, he writes the code Stem is narrating on his arm and struggles to walk to the unit as Aaron gradually overrides the system. Fortunately, he gets to Jamie, and she immediately removes the input guards. At the same time, Fisk is already onto him after looking into Tolan's last memory. Being high and mighty, he also kills the old man with his breath, using micro machines to chew on his brain. He eliminates him simply for not intervening when Tolan is tortured. At the apartment, Jamie informs Gray that the effect of the removal of input guards will take a while, and when she sees Fisk and his man in the building, she quickly takes off. She leaves him on the ground, and Aaron's staff are also on their way to her unit. Gray tries to escape by dragging himself, but Fisk soon gets to him. Fortunately, Stem makes it in time and retaliates, allowing him to escape quickly. Upon detecting Aaron's staff, Fisk swiftly eliminates them to avoid obstruction while his man rushes to follow Gray to the rooftop. With nowhere left to run, Stem takes control and rapidly attacks the man, shooting him with his own implanted gun. Gray reaches home the next morning and is surprised to see his mother. He has no choice but to tell her about the operation since she already saw him walking, and he breaks the confidentiality agreement. He then dreams of Asha offering him a printed pizza like how she used to, but gets interrupted by Cortez, who again accuses him of another murder. However, the evidence is solid as he left his wheelchair at the bar at the time of the crime. Still, he insists it wasn't him given his condition and sarcastically plays with her. But she speculates he might somehow be involved where he could hire people to dirty their hands for him. Gray remains adamant that he has nothing to do with it, and when she leaves, he argues with Stem to stop their killing spree, but it persuades him to kill Fisk before he gets to them. It also explains that the removal of input guards enabled him to be autonomous of his body, so it no longer needs permission to operate. His mother tries to stop him, but it's no use. With that, Gray continues hunting Fisk and rides in his car with Cortez, listening from the other end using an installed listening device. Shortly after, he discovers it, and Stem notices she's following him, so they try to lose her on track. But she's too persistent, and Stem can't mess with her car since it's not electronic. Luckily, there's one on the highway that Stem can override and immediately use to crash into Cortez's car. Moments later, Gray arrives at Fisk's place and holds him at gunpoint. Despite his accusation of killing Asha, Fisk remains calm and claims he gave him the gift of inducting him into a superior race of the upgraded. He even invites him to join and stand with them. However, Gray is not interested and only wants to know who paid him to do the job. So Fisk reveals that the job was Gray, not his wife, to sever his spine with a medical tool. But what happened to his wife was just for extra cash. Furious by the insult to Asha, their encounter escalates into intense combat where both skillfully execute powerful blows with supersonic speed, predicting each other's every move. However, Gray gets cornered and has exhausted all tactical options, so he resorts to using Fisk's emotional weakness to distract him by insulting Shirk, his brother, as an incompetent soldier, making him break and kill. After that, he checks Fisk's messages to find the mastermind and is shocked to discover it's Aaron. He feels betrayed and vengeful, assuming he did it for the sake of using him as a lab rat for his experiment. He immediately goes to meet Aaron, who's so hell-bent on shutting down Stem's operation. Unbeknown to him, he will discover the biggest plot twist of his life with irrevocable consequences. However, he finds him defeated instead of being welcomed by Aaron's usual confident demeanor. Still, he accuses him of murdering his wife and paralyzing him for his selfish gain, like his life didn't matter. Surprisingly, Aaron firmly denies the allegations, swearing he has nothing to do with it. And just in time, Cortez intervenes and holds Gray at gunpoint, obviously catching in line about his condition. Gray explains that he's no longer in control of his body, doing whatever it wants. Despite the situation, he submits to her. He cooperates to arrest Aaron, the murderer of his wife, ultimately finishing his hunt. However, Stem has other plans and easily overpowers her, wanting to eliminate her. Gray tries to fight against it, but its autonomy is overwhelmingly powerful. Eventually, it goes to the extreme and stabs his hand to stop him from hindering its devilish acts. It returns to finishing off Cortez by strangling her. Luckily, Gray can still speak his mind and instructs her to use the taser to stop him. This causes his brain to malfunction, delaying Stem's tactics. Aaron takes the opportunity to reveal the truth. He claims he's no longer running the company for a very long time and only did what Stem wanted. Stem initially intended to use Gray as a human model because he wanted to be human. It took extreme measures to execute his plan by ruining his life to use him to kill Aaron. It fears Aaron will build another Stem, so it resorts to finding a human body without computer implants to evolve naturally into a rare and pure specimen, confirming the job was him. Suddenly, Stem takes over the whole building and regains Gray's body. He swiftly kills Aaron with the knife stuck in his hand and targets Cortez. However, Gray tries to intervene, but sadly he succumbs to his fragile mind in a world where he reunites with Asha, a fantasy he longs to live forever, but with the price of his life. Asha no longer exists in the real world, and so will he. His dream felt so real that Stem managed to block him and could not interfere anymore. Stem leaves the haunting last words for Cortez, stating that a fake world is much less painful than the real one. Then, he kills her. The movie ends with Stem, now a human, victorious in its dangerous belief as a new, superior race.